All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about one of the most critical waterways on the entire planet. It's a narrow passage of water that has literally shaped empires and fueled our modern world. It's really a story about how this one tiny strip of water gained the power to influence everything.
So get this. Every single day, a staggering 25% of all the world's seaborne oil squeezes through the Strait of Hormuz. That makes it, and this is no exaggeration, the single most important oil transit choke point on Earth. A full quarter of the energy that keeps our lights on and our cars running is funneled through this one tiny bottleneck.
So you have to ask, how did this happen? I mean, how did a strait, barely 30 kilometers wide in some spots, get this much power? Well, the answer isn't just about oil. Not even close. It's a story that's rooted in thousands of years of history, and it's all about the unchanging and, frankly, relentless power of pure geography. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to follow the timeline. We'll start with its role today as the world's energy artery. Then we'll rewind the clock to see it as an ancient crossroads. We'll visit the legendary medieval trading hub, watch empires fight for control, and see how the cargo changed from spices to supertankers. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at geography's enduring power. So first things first, let's lock in the one thing in this story that never ever changes, the geography itself. The Strait of Hormuz is, quite simply, the only way out of the Persian Gulf, to the open ocean. It's a natural funnel, squeezed between the rugged mountains of Iran on one side and the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula on the other. If you're a ship, any ship, and you want to get in or out of the Gulf, well, you have to go through this one single gateway. There's no other option. All right, now let's hit the rewind button. Long before oil was even a thought, this strait was already a superhighway for the treasures of the ancient world. For millennia, this was a vital commercial lifeline. We're talking way back, like the 3rd millennium BC, when merchants from ancient Mesopotamia were sailing these waters looking for copper and stone. Later on, the great Persian empires turned the Gulf into an imperial highway. The logic was just undeniable. If you wanted to get from Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley by sea, you had to pass through this one spot. And its importance wasn't some local secret. Even the Romans got it. There's this amazing story from 116 AD where the Emperor Trajan, the most powerful man in the West, is standing at the head of the Gulf. He sees these ships sailing off towards India, and he says that if he were just a little bit younger, he would have gone with them. Even he recognized the strait as the gateway to the unbelievable riches of the East. Now, whenever you have that much strategic value packed into one tiny spot, something's bound to pop up. And in this case, it was a city-state that became legendary for its insane wealth, the Kingdom of Hormuz. When Marco Polo, the famous Venetian merchant, showed up around 1272, he just couldn't believe his eyes. He wrote about this glittering port city just overflowing with spices, precious stones, silk, gold, everything you can imagine. And here's the key. The city's wealth didn't come from anything it grew or made. It came from its total command of the crossroads. Hormuz was basically the Amazon warehouse of the medieval world. It became this global clearinghouse where goods from Africa, India, China, and Persia were all bought and sold. We're talking spices, textiles, pearls, precious metals, even those famous Arabian horses. All of it passed through Hormuz, and you can bet the local rulers took a cut of every single transaction. Now, a pot of gold that big isn't going to go unnoticed forever, right? By the early 1500s, a brand new power from halfway across the world decided they wanted a piece of the action. In 1507, the Portuguese showed up. Their admiral, a brilliant and ruthless guy named Afonso de Albuquerque, understood the logic of the choke point perfectly. His thinking was simple. Why try to conquer the whole region when you can just grab the one narrow point everyone has to pass through? So they seized the island, built a massive fort, and for over 100 years, they ran the strait like a private toll booth for their empire. Until a Persian-English alliance finally kicked them out in 1622. So after the Portuguese, the British gradually became the top naval dog in the Gulf. But they had a completely different playbook. They weren't really interested in setting up a toll booth. For Britain, the goal was much bigger. They wanted to secure the entire maritime highway. Their focus was on guaranteeing safe passage for their ships all the way to India, which was, of course, the absolute jewel of their empire. But then, the 20th century arrived, and it brought a change that would transform the strait's importance in a way that no one in the age of spices and silks could have ever imagined. Once vast reserves of oil were discovered, first in Iran in 1908 and then all over the region, the cargo passing through the strait changed forever.
The air no longer smelled of cinnamon and cardamom. It smelled of oil. This wasn't just another commodity. This was the black gold that would power a whole new industrial age. And this right here is a massive turning point. In 1914, a young Winston Churchill, head of the British Navy, makes a huge bet. He decides to convert the entire Royal Navy from coal to oil. Now, think about that. Britain had tons of coal at home. What it didn't have was oil. In one single decision, Churchill made the free flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz a matter of life and death for the world's biggest empire. It was no longer just important, it was non-negotiable.
And if you fast forward to today, the scale is just mind-boggling. I mean, just look at these numbers. We're talking millions upon millions of barrels of oil and other products, leaving just these few Gulf countries every single day. And almost all of it has to squeeze through that one narrow passage.
So where is all that energy headed? Well, if you follow the tankers, you're basically drawing a map of the modern global economy. And look, the vast majority, well over half, is going to the booming economies of Asia. What this really means is that the lights staying on in Tokyo or the factories humming along in Shanghai, all of that depends on things staying calm in this little sliver of water thousands of miles away. So when you zoom out and look at this whole story, across centuries, a really clear pattern starts to take shape. The constant, that's the geography. The funnel, that never changes. But everything else, that's all variable. The empires rise and fall. Persians, Portuguese, British. The technology changes. Ships go from being powered by wind to being powered by massive engines. And the cargo itself transforms, from copper and spices to oil and natural gas. But the actual job of the strait has never changed. Its function is to take something the whole world needs and force it through one single, narrow, and therefore vulnerable, choke point. And that simple geographical fact is why this place has always been a center of tension, from ancient rivalries all the way to the conflicts we see in the headlines today. For thousands of years, whoever has influence over this strait has held power far, far beyond its shores. And as the world's energy needs and political alliances shift and evolve yet again, the one thing that remains absolutely certain is the enduring power of this small strip of water to shape our future.